This reflection is based on a passage from Luke chapter 14, verses 1 to 14. Now, last week we saw how Jesus had healed a woman in the synagogue on the Sabbath, and she was a woman who'd been bent right over for 18 years, and he enabled her to stand up straight. Now, the synagogue ruler got really angry because healing was seen as work, and doing it on the Sabbath was breaking the law. But Jesus wanted to show them that the well-being of this woman was far more important than the law. Now, today's section starts with a confrontation with the Pharisees. These Pharisees were a group of people who began with the best of intentions. At a time when the people of Israel were really turning away from God and following the religions of other nations, the Pharisees, I guess, made a reform movement, and they started this group who were keeping the law of Moses quite meticulously. And they were determined to do so, but it had been about 150 years since their formation, and in that 150 years, they'd lost that original heartfelt desire to serve God. And it had become something of a, well, I guess a bit of a charade, very legalistic. And they liked to be noticed for their piety. They liked to be honoured in public, but they had little care for people and really little care for God. In today's passage, Jesus was invited to the home of a Pharisee on the Sabbath day. And the text says he is being carefully watched. This was actually a plant. It wasn't a genuine invitation, because at the dinner there was a man suffering from, it's called dropsy. In today's terms, it's edema, swelling. He'd obviously been placed there as a test. Would Jesus heal him on the Sabbath? And thus the Pharisees could start to build a case against him. Well, Jesus did heal the man. And when he had, he turned to them and said, "Now, if any of you had a donkey or even a child who fell into a ditch on the Sabbath, would you just leave them there till the next day?" Well, of course, they had no answer. It was just showing their hypocrisy. The story then says how he noticed that the other people coming to the dinner were choosing seats of honour. Now, back in those days, this was very important. The way a person would be seated at a dinner was in according to their status. So the most important people would sit either side of the host, and then the lesser status you had, the further away from the host you would be seated. And Jesus said he noticed the people were trying to get close to the host, the reason being that they wanted to be seen as important people. He told them a parable. He said, "Look, if you go to a wedding feast, if you're invited to it, don't choose the place of honour, because somebody with a higher honour might come, and then the host will have to say to you, excuse me, will you give this man your seat?" And they'll move you down, lower down. And that would be very embarrassing. Instead, he says, choose a lowly seat. And then your host comes and says, "Oh, come on, sit higher up than that." And that way you get to be honoured, I guess, in the presence of the other guests. Now, this does sound a little bit like Jesus telling people how to manipulate praise. And as human beings, we are rather good at that. You know, someone will say, "Oh, I'm not very good at that," just waiting for others to say, "Oh, yes, you are. You do a terrific job." Or you bring something and you say, "Look, I had to make it in a hurry and it's not very good," just waiting for others to say, "Oh, I think it's fantastic." I don't know how you do it like that. It's feigning humility in order to get praise. And that's just plain insincerity. Jesus isn't suggesting that we behave that way. Rather, he's talking about don't seek the regard of people, but what we do should be what we know God wants us to do. It may bring ridicule. It may cause us to our friends to oppose us, whatever. But it's more important to do what God wants us to do than to please people. He ends the passage saying, look, if you do give a dinner party, invite the people who can't pay you back, the people who are poor and so on. In other words, act with no expectation of reward. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't ask our friends to dinner and enjoy their company, but the motivation is important. The motivation needs to be that we are simply being generous and wanting to enjoy their company. Everyone likes to be liked by others, But it can become an absolute bondage when our life's dominated by the need to do what we think will please other people, make other people like us and agree with us. We call it people pleasing. It's very easy to become a people pleaser. It can take real gumption to stand up for something that we believe is right when others are against it. But Jesus ends this little passage by saying that if we reach out to those who have no way of paying us back, we will be blessed. In fact, we will be repaid. We will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Acts 5:29, Peter and John were hauled before the authorities because they'd been telling people about Jesus. They were ordered not to do this anymore, and Peter's reply was, "We must obey God rather than human beings." They were flogged and sent on their way, but they never stopped preaching and teaching and healing about Jesus.
It is the cry in my heart to follow you. It is the cry in my heart to be close to you. It is the cry in my heart to follow all of the days of my life. It is the cry in my heart to follow you. It is the cry in my heart to be close to you. It is the cry in my heart to follow all the days of my life. Teach me your holy ways, O Lord, so I can walk in your truth. Teach me your holy ways, O Lord, and make me holy, holy in you. It is the cry in my heart to follow you. It is the cry in my heart to be close to you. It is the cry in my heart to follow all the days of my life. Open my eyes so I can see the wonderful things that you do. Open my heart up more and more and make me wholly devoted to you. It is the cry in my heart to follow you. It is the cry in my heart to be close to you. It is the cry